Yo, what's up? It's Kaiju Unlimited here, back with another chapter review for chapter 110. It was a very exciting chapter, but before we get into it, let's go over last chapter a little bit at first. It was very flashback heavy, and we got to see Mina and Kafka as kids in the library, setting their goals of what they want from their future. And once it brings you back to the current times, it's super emotional conversations between Mina and Kafka has a realization that even though his life didn't turn out the way that he necessarily wanted it to, he still has that one promise to Mina to fight by her side. We get to end the chapter with just that, Kafka and Mina standing side by side as number 9 approaches. And because of all the flashbacks and dialogue that we got from chapter 109, I felt pretty sure that we were going to be getting the fight between Kafka, Mina, and number 9 this chapter. I'm just gonna say this, it does not disappoint. Before we get into the chapter though, I just want to say, if you enjoy the video, give it a like, maybe a sub if you want to see more Kaiju number 8, and maybe Kaiju number 8 B-side if I get the hang of this editing thing. Also, if you have any advice for me, just drop it down in the comments, I'll be sure to read them and taking it into account. Now that that's out of the way, let's get into chapter 110. We open up with a flashback of Kafka and Mina as kids, stating their goal, and then we get one final glimpse of the calm before the storm as Kaiju number 9 and Kafka and Mina stare each other down. Now neutralizing Kaiju number 9. They say as Vice Captain Hoshina, the little girl Kafka saved, and the others wait for the results of the clash. Mina and Kafka take off towards Kaiju number 9. Immediately it fires off projectiles towards their direction. As Kafka jumps through the cloud of dust, he thinks back to his conversation with Mina just a few minutes prior. He revealed that he had 2 techniques left that number 9 hadn't seen yet, and he needs to hit its core before it figures that out. Mina realizes this is their last chance and accepts, stating that she'll provide cover fire and strip away the shield. We get the end of the flashback with Mina telling him, Kafka, put everything you've got into hitting that core. And back in the current events, Kafka readies his fist to strike Kaiju number 9. It reacts with a punch of its own, and we can see the shockwave of their fist colliding. Kaiju number 9 begins to ready some more projectiles to fire at Kafka, when suddenly he is hit by a barrage. Number 9 turns its head to face that direction, and catches a glimpse of Mina sprinting by, pistol in hand. Immediately, it fires off projectiles towards Mina's direction, and we see her barely jump out the way. It was a little too distracted though, as we see Kafka pull up and use a squadron style move directly on him. Luckily for number 9, it was able to barely get its arm in there and block a direct hit on its body from that move. I don't believe it will be able to take too many of those hits from Kafka. And just as number 9 is forming some ball of energy in its mouth to shoot off, I assume, another barrage of bullets fires at Kaiju number 9. And Kafka wastes no time. He fires off a kick immediately at number 9's chest, knocking it back a pretty good distance. Konomi and the other scientists from the defense force are in awe of what they're seeing from Mina. They think that her support fire is not only absurdly powerful but also incredibly precise, even commenting on how her approach is night and day compared to when she's teaming with Vice Captain Hoshina. To put it plainly, whenever she's fighting with Kafka, we're witnessing a completely different side of her. One of the higher-ups thinks to himself how Mina supporting Kafka opens up the fight so much for him and allows him to use his squadron-style moves that have already been revealed by now. It's been really dope to see Kafka change all of the higher-ups' opinions of him, because when it was first revealed that he was Kaiju number 8, they didn't give him a chance in the world. As Kafka begins to close the distance on number 9, it stands there charging energy. One of the Defense Force scientists begins to panic and tells Kafka that number 2's shockwave is coming. Right whenever the energy is about to be released, Kafka crouches down and jumps up, dodging the shockwave, before bringing down a mean heel drop. Another scientist is amazed, exclaiming, number 9 isn't the only one learning. Kafka experienced that in his fight with the General Director too. As number 9 gets blown back, Kafka tries to close the distance. Then it stops and begins storing energy in its tail, and this catches Kafka and all of the higher-ups off guard. With the flick of its tail, number 9 releases an explosion of energy all around him. Mina and Kafka try to brace themselves as debris flies towards them. One of the scientists comes up on the comms. That wasn't one of number 9's or number 2's. We have no data on that attack. Number 9 is housing several abilities in one body. Upon hearing this, Mina recalls the countless kaiju she saw inside of number 9 and reveals the information to Kafka, warning him to tread carefully. He still has tricks up his sleeve. Just a quick side note, last chapter I predicted that Kaiju number 9 still had some tricks up his sleeve, so hearing Mina use the exact same wordage was kind of awesome. After the debris clears, we see Kafka approaching number 9 from the front and Mina from the back as it prepares to attack both of them. And in the moment, you can see Mina and Kafka trying their hardest to push through and finally defeat number 9. Sometimes it's just not enough though, as we see Kafka get slammed into the wall and then Mina gets hit directly into another as they both cough up blood. As the Mr. Kaiju girl and all other onlookers are watching, Kaiju number 9 is left standing alone. And man, this is one of my favorite parts of the chapter so far. Seeing everybody's reactions, the hope fading from their faces. And for good reason too. Mina, the strongest weapon that the Defense Force has, plus a miracle, basically a kaiju sent to fight for humanity. And yet, not even number 8 and Mina's powers combined are enough. As reality sets in, they realize they're all out of options. However, Kafka isn't done yet. He acknowledges number 9's power and the fact that him and Captain Narumi couldn't even lay a scratch on it. Kafka remembers learning the combat techniques from Hoshina, his quote-unquote ace in the hole that he couldn't even tell Mina about. Then we get a flashback of him in a training room filled with craters all around. His inner thoughts reveal that Kafka did this on his own, keeping it a secret from Vice Captain Hoshina, finding his own ace, even deeper in the hole. And we see Captain Narumi with an intense look on his face after that training session. Back to the current events, Kafka's inner dialogue reveals that he can control it for 1 minute, and we start hearing the creepy chants of kill by Kaiju number 8. And with veins popping out of his face and blood leaking from his mouth, Kafka calls out to it. I know you want to kill, right? I'm gonna set you free. So give me your strength. And we get to see that little bug Kaiju number 8, well, he's not little right now, but you get what I mean, right behind Kafka. And to end the chapter, we get this sick panel of Kafka going rage mode, berserk mode, whatever you want to call it. He just looks epic. And based off of the lines, it looks like he's growing in size too. I'm not 100% sure. Let me know what you think in the comments. And that'll wrap up the chapter. It was a really good one with lots of action, so if you like action, this was a chapter for you. A thing that stands out to me was just seeing Mina's ability kind of get stronger when fighting next to Kafka. Whether that be a mental buff or an actual increase in her abilities, but everyone at the Defense Force could see that this was a different version of Mina. And don't even get me started on their teamwork, it was impeccable. Anytime number 9 had either of them in any danger, the other would pull up having their back. It was just so clean. Honestly, it gave me like Naruto and Sasuke versus Momoshiki vibes. If you guys have ever seen Boruto or that specific fight, you'll know what I mean. Another thing that stuck out, the Defense Force is now aware about the unknown abilities of Kaiju number 9, even if they might not know what every ability is. Mina revealed the countless Kaiju that number 9 has stored inside of it, so they'll act with a more sense of caution. Personally, I was a little salty that Mina and Kafka got beat by number 9, but as Kafka said, even him and Captain Narumi couldn't even land a scratch on that thing. And now it's had time to strategize and heal its body and prepare for the fight. It was never going to be that easy. Also, Kafka's training with Captain Narumi was super unexpected, but just like something that he would do. We've seen Kafka in the past training after hours or training super hard to achieve something that he feels strongly about, and doing it with Captain Narumi, you know those were emotional training sessions because they both couldn't stop number 9 back then. One thing to keep in the back of our minds during this fight as well is the time limit that Vice Captain Hoshina introduced 2 chapters ago. If Kafka stays in kaiju form, he might not be able to transform back into human. And I'm worried that if this new berserk mode, or whatever we're calling it, if it will accelerate the process of that time limit. And lastly, Mina. She's gonna be okay. Things are a little worse for wear right now, but Kafka is gonna go berserk mode and probably get into more of a one-on-one fight with Kaiju number 9. and I can see Mina slipping back into the fight at the right moment. We'll have to see about that in future chapters though. Let me know what you thought of this chapter in the comments, or any chapter predictions for the future you may have. And that's a wrap on the review. If you enjoyed the video and made it to the end, go ahead and give it a like, and maybe a sub if you like the channel and want to check out more Kaiju number 8 chapter reviews in the future. Lastly, I just want to say thanks for sticking to the end of the video. All your guys' support is appreciated. If you have any advice or anything you'd like to say, go ahead and leave them in the comments and I'll be sure to check them out. And I will see y'all later.